This is Red Pill Traumaland. This chapter is The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game. This is Volume 1. When people are on the outside looking in, some of the things they hear about the alpha males and the hood rat women sounds enticing. The men are known for their smoothness and having women at their beck and call. The women are known for intrigue and sexual prowess. The reputations are based on fact. The men are smooth and have women available to them. And the women are masters of pleasure. They know how to please on many different levels. Their sexual promise has given them the status of reality TV stars. Let's take a look at a week in the life of these headliners. The word on the curb. Dedicated alpha man Mr. Smooth has a woman that he's been enjoying more than the others. Now, he always follows the alpha code. He controls his behavior when he's irritated, disguises his passions, and he conceals his feelings. He believes women need men for validation. He thinks he's good at game, has a smooth social presence. He knows how to dress, and he thinks he has his sex thing under control. He's out there and doesn't know it. Because there are no limits or boundaries, he just keeps on pushing. He has gotten used to always getting a yes to whatever he wants from women. He has gotten out of touch with other people's feelings and their motivations. He was an out-of-touch alpha and didn't know it. Now, just to see if she would submit, he brought up the subject of a menage a trois. Now, if one woman feels good, he thought, just imagine what two freaky women lusting after him and touching him at the same moment would do. He was lusting, but just didn't recognize it. He and his latest flame had been casually watching some sex videos, and he noticed that he didn't turn away from the screen when it showed two women pleasuring their man. His nostrils flared. He had gotten a piece of alpha steroid, and he thought he could kill two birds with one stone. He knew that he needed to keep his girl answering challenges. She had bought into thinking that she had to always say yes. And then there was this new girl that his buddy wanted to pass off to him because she had gotten too close and was making requests that he had to say no to. This was a perfect storm. The timing couldn't be better. He told his girl that he was going to have a nice party for her, and he would have all of her favorite favors just for a fabulous evening. Now that opened her nose. Getting high in sex was what Mr. Smooth was known for, and she got the message that this was going to be a sexy party. This was her chance to please him in a way she had never done before. He handled his street business and made sure that he was always in control of the display of his passion. The new girl was looking forward to spending some time with him. He was one of the most desirable men in the streets. For her, this was a chance to improve her street resume and have a little fun too. Partying with Mr. Smooth would give her some street validation, and getting high for free is always fun. Here we are, the night of the party. He had everything in order. What needed to be chopped was chopped. The light refreshments were fresh. And there were two party tables, one in the living room, the other in the bedroom. When the doorbell rang, he asked his lady to answer it. When the two women's eyes met, woman to woman, they each knew what they were there for. The evening went along splendidly. Everyone enjoyed the early fun, conversational part of the evening. But then looks were exchanged, and shoes came off, signaling it's time to retire to a more relaxing environment. When the clothes were off, nothing was left to the imagination. To him, this was one of the advantages of being the alpha. To the women, it was personal validation that they had satisfied someone whose name was ringing in the streets. Little did they know that this was just the beginning of their entanglement. This is the end of part 1. This alpha is about to be captured and tortured by the game. It's a fool's illusion that the street life can be stabilized. Hiding one's passions can cause a woman to hit you as hard as she can to get a reaction. In the next video, we will see what she does to him to show him that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Always like and subscribe. See you on Chapter 2. This is The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game, Part 2. It was a week after the sex party. She was feeling a little emotional heaviness. Her life had her doing things that she never thought she would do. She had gone beyond what she thought her boundaries were. She used to think about getting married, raising a family. Now she sees herself attached to a man who won't choose her, ever. And she's getting trauma bonded by doing things that cause her spiritual pain. She's becoming a part of the street conversation. She's gone from having just one boyfriend to sleeping with different combinations of people. She had begun to accept the role society had foisted on her. She was becoming bitter. She was seeing that her interests were not mattering to anybody but her. She had, in a few short years, managed to go from being someone who knew love was possible to being someone chasing a man that she would be ashamed to bring home to mama. Now, she had wanted some alone time with Mr. Smooth. She had asked for a Friday night so she could release some tension and feel cared for. But Mr. Smooth had other plans for that evening. He said he had business to tend to. Yeah, she thought, with some other woman. Now, every now and then, the planets align and things change big time. This was one of those times. It was a few days after that Friday night. She was at his spot. She was in one of those moods where she was hurting and wanted to hurt back. Did you miss me last Friday? After I called you and you said you were going to be going out, I got a call from Misty, our friend from the other night when we partied. She said she wasn't doing anything and she was coming by with a friend. And when she came by, she brought that fellow that you two had introduced you to her. She also had some party favors, everything we needed for a stimulating time. Now, after the shoes came off and a few drinks and a few hours of the wet tour, we were exhausted. The gentleman she brought with her, wow, he seemed like he knew my rhythm. I tried to keep him in mind, but he was breaking my back wide open. He called out for his mama when I made him spill. The only thing that was missing was you. Now, this is the part that they leave out when the Red Pill alphas tell the stories of their coolness. This alpha was trapped in his role. He knew that he had to harden his grip on his emotions. He had to pay close attention to his eyes and the expression on his face. He couldn't let her know how deeply her words were cutting him. But that was exactly what she wanted to do. Have him feel what it's like to be thrown around like she had been thrown around. Now, this was a blow to his very soul. But who could he confess to? The life he had chosen was squeezing him so hard that he could hardly breathe. He knew something was not right with the path he was on. But he's afraid to take a chance on love. He brought into the conversation that all women will lie and cheat. Now that conversation has caught up with him. He had been doing everything to feature himself as an alpha with complete control. But that's now how God created us. Listen, because he had come to master his control of his face and to control his response to irritation, no one really knew him. He had spent years hiding his passion and often acting in ways against his feelings. He had unknowingly accepted the role and the behaviors that society had laid out for him. Oh, yeah, it's all good when you're wet and wild in bed, but as a person with emotions, he was totally alone. All of his disguising, his passions, has left him with women who choose him because of his standing in the street, not because of the quality man that he is. Some want him because other women want him. And in the part two of our video, Don't Ever Weaken, we learned about how some women may feel and therefore believe that they can change a man. But he has spent years hardening his heart against any woman who would try to get close to him. Little did he know that the walls he built around himself what turned out to be what kept him separate from the nurturing and care that he needed. But the streets weren't through banging his heart around. When his main lady told him about what happened, he was livid. As soon as he was alone, he called Misty, the female friend that he and his girl had a party with. Why, he wanted to know. Why would she bring another man to have a threesome with his main woman? This was going against street etiquette. Everybody knows you don't go back to the man's woman when he's not included. Imagine his surprise when she told him what really happened. That it was his girl who had called her and said she wanted to do a guy with her again. She said she liked the way that they, the women, had taken control in the lovemaking. She said she wanted her to get somebody who knew what to do with a woman's body. And she suggested the street friend that they had been talking about. This is the end of part 2. This woman walked without him through the doors that he had opened. Now his woman's hood-rat behavior would have street implications. Go on to part 3 to hear what some of the fallout was. But before you go, remember to subscribe and hit the like button. The hunter gets captured by the game. Part 3. After he found out his woman was soliciting for sex in the streets, he was peed off. But she was ready for him. What were you doing that Friday night? I tried to get to you, but didn't you say you weren't coming by? Besides, if you can go out and have a little fun, why shouldn't I? That was how the conversation went. But let's you and me take a look at what else changed. Mr. Smooth doesn't look so good. To the Manosphere people, it looks like he has no control of his business. Everybody heard about his woman calling up, setting up sex dates. This is not what's supposed to happen to an alpha man. Sure, every now and then some random sex may happen, but this was like he didn't exist. She ran right through him. His rep took a hit. As for her, the fallout was bittersweet. With the women, she got mixed reviews. Some saw her as a threat. She was now known as a woman who may or may not be available depending on her mood. They saw her as somebody that their man might call with a threesome and get high in mind. And she didn't stick to the street decorum. She was every woman's worst fear, an angry, turned-out sex freak. She was now collecting men on the strength of her having been Mr. Smooth's hottest sex partner and leaving him. She was tired of taking what was supposed to be the inside lane. Now she was the star, the queen of street sex. To other women, she served as a warning to their men. If the man got too big and full of himself, a woman had choices she could make. But what about her? All she really wanted was to be loved. Now she had turned everything upside down. She had lost count of the men she had taken to bed. Now the men who knew of her exploits would not think of her as serious mate material. And to think of her as a wife was laughable. Everybody knew that when she got mad, she would find the person who would hurt you most and sleep with them and make sure everybody knew. She had lost her boundaries. This was her game. She was now a woman with no shame. Taking men down was her revenge. Now, my friend, you have had a chance to see some of the emotional costs. Do you still think that this lifestyle is worth choosing? Do you want to have your emotional health depending on these broken people? Their lifestyle demands that they live a lie. They aren't happy. They are just trying to look good. They have forgotten about love, marriage, and having a family. Street life is like being addicted to drugs. You have to make a commitment to get away from what's poisoning your life. And if you don't take a stand, you will be doing drugs all your life. I have heard of crackheads in their 70s. And I have seen street people well into their 70s still screwing another man's wife. And the wife referencing something about it on social media. This is why you don't marry a woman out of the streets. The streets are her home. And in a tight moment, she will go back. And you won't know unless she tries to hurt you by telling you. Now that's a dangerous woman. And men, you are getting emotional baggage when you bring up this into your next relationship. If you ever get out of the street, you're lucky. I can only hope and pray that this message saves some souls. Some of the costs may not be recoverable, like the time you spend chasing what doesn't want to be caught. And if you are a man, you can lose yourself in the sheets of luscious women with whom you know there is no future. And women, one of your biggest perils is that over time it gets easier to just go get another man than to work on your relationship. You have learned that you can get a new man as easy as going to the store. Horny men are everywhere. So, my friends, watch these videos over and over until you get every message. Then tell your friends who you know need to hear this. This was a labor of love. Go get 'em, cowboy. You too, cowgirl. Don't forget to subscribe and click the like button.